ॐ तव कथामृतं तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरिराजना. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Swami Krishna. We're on the chapter Advice to Ishan. The date was Saturday, October 11th, 1884, and we stopped at the middle of page 605. And Sri Ramakrishna is in his room at Dakshineshwar. M is there, Priya Mukherjee, some others as well. And the tutor from the Tagore family had come. That was the last thing that we saw. So the middle of page 605. Tutor. Revered sir, one man quickly succeeds in spiritual life and another doesn't succeed at all. How do you explain that? Master. The truth is that a man succeeds to a great extent because of tendencies inherited from his previous births. People think he has attained the goal all of a sudden. A man drank a glass of wine in the morning. It made him completely drunk. He began to behave improperly. People were amazed to see that he could be so drunk after one glass. But another man said, "Why, he has been drinking all night." This is one of the themes that we find throughout the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, this idea of samskaras. It's based on the idea of rebirth. This is one thing. We find in the beginning that this was a point that M had a difficulty with in the beginning. For some reason, and it's always surprised me, some reason it seems that M didn't have too much faith in this idea of rebirth, being Western educated, and I don't know the Brahmo Samaj, if they had much interest in these things at all. But as a member of the Brahmo Samaj, there was not too much interest in this idea of avatar. This idea of, I shouldn't say that there wasn't much interest at all. And this idea of the worship of the deities, temple worship, more emphasis, of course, was put on some social service types of things. So we find that I'm asking Sri Ramakrishna, will it harm my spiritual life if I don't have deep faith in these ideas? So Sri Ramakrishna, he was always very kind. He said, no, if you believe that everything is possible with God. He starts out like that. Gradually, M comes to the point where he, in the beginning, a little bit grudgingly accepts it. Sri Ramakrishna, and the way that Sri Ramakrishna explains it is not so much from any philosophical point of view, but by pointing out, you see these young boys, some of them, how pure souled they are, how quickly they can pick up spiritual ideas. You must admit that they have some good samskaras. So M finally says, yes, I agree. So the idea with samskaras is that these are tendencies that we're born with based on what has been done in the previous lifetime. And if that is based on the previous lifetime, then we have to go back to more than one lifetime, if we want to look at it that way. The moment that we're born, we start manifesting these samskaras, and also we start modifying these samskaras because and creating new ones, because these are a result. This is basic part of the karma theory, that whatever we do and whatever we experience, these two things, Whatever we do is action, and whatever we experience through our senses, observation, whatever, these leave a mark, an impression on us. And these impressions uh, generally will remain hidden. That is, that we won't necessarily know the source, why we're born with a certain tendency for something, and it may not be necessary to even bother. We can just recognize that. Uh, it helps explain why some people, as Ramakrishna says in spiritual life, why some people can make rapid progress in spiritual life, why some people are really held back by some tendencies. And these will bring in this idea of the gunas again, tamasic and rajasic tendencies, that they'll be prone to anger and lust and greed and pride and jealousy and envy, all of these different types of passions. Uh, why some people will be born with some tremendous type of talent. How do we explain these child prodigies? These young kids who somehow can play the piano and the violin and other things as if they've been studying the whole lifetime. And how do we explain the deep propensity for things, desire for certain things, and the tremendous difference that we can have in two members of the same family, two children who were born, same parents, and grow up more or less with the same type of environment and everything, but can be very different in terms of personality. So the explanation that's given is this idea of samskara. Now, is it necessary for us to accept this? It's not necessary, of course, but it's helpful. It's helpful in understanding ourselves and understanding the potential that we have to change. See, it helps us understand the things that we have trouble changing. Why do I have so much trouble with anger? Why we can understand that something that was a tendency that I was born with for whatever reason. Whatever I did in the past, I don't have to bother about that. But if I have that understanding that it's the result of what I've done and what I've experienced in life, then I change my behavior. I change the company that I keep, the types of uh, experiences that I'll have in this lifetime, and this will modify them. And we have some types of samskaras that are very strong. And Sri Ramakrishna, he recommends with these that uh, we try to give them a spiritual twist and turn. If we have a tendency towards uh, any of these, towards anger or something, and we really have trouble controlling it, then at least make it something that our anger is out of frustration for not being able to lead a more spiritual life. Give it some type of positive turn. Yeah. Otherwise, we spiritual life means creating these new samskaras. It means purifying the old ones, uh, creating sattva. This is the main thing in our character, to become sattvic people, to be good, kind, loving people. These, the more we develop sattvic qualities, the more these other things fall away. So Sri Ramakrishna, he very often will emphasize that how fortunate some of these young boys are now. When a great soul like Sri Ramakrishna is born, naturally there'll be some attraction for those to be born within that circle somehow, who have these wonderful tendencies, uh, or even we have a handful of the Thakur called these nitya siddhas, these perfect souls that will be born all at that same time, part of this lila. So this is that idea in tendencies inherited from the previous births. So these samskaras. Hanuman burned down the golden city of Lanka. People were amazed that a mere monkey could burn the whole city. But then they said, the truth is that the city was burned by the sighs of Sita and the wrath of Rama. Look at Lala Babu. This Lala Babu, there's a footnote, was a well-known landholder of Bengal who renounced the world at an early age and lived at Mathura as a Vaishnava monk. Yeah, now this idea of samskaras, these may be perfectly hidden under a very worldly veneer, even. We look at the story of Vilvamangal. Huh? This Vilvamangal, from all outer appearances, he was the most attached human being you can imagine, and uh, horribly in love with this prostitute that would scold him and take advantage of him and everything, and yet uh, one word that she said to him, uh, if you had just a fraction of that attachment to God that you have to me, you could become a great saint. That was enough. That somehow it triggered somebody's mind. She said, yes, she's right. And he bowed down before her. He said, Chintamani, you're my guru. And he went off and became a great saint. So these things don't happen unless the potential at least is there. If we explain it in terms of samskar, it's fine. That has to be there somehow. And sometimes they have to be awakened, sometimes developed. There's a very vast subject that psychology deals with. They don't have to understand this idea of samskaras, but how do we deal with these very strong tendencies, personality traits, bad temper, uh, mean-heartedness, all sorts of things that can blacken our hearts and make life awful and miserable for us and everybody else. What do we do with these things? Yeah. So Sri Ramakrishna is always talking about uh, this need to purify the heart and the mind somehow. And of course, the easiest and best is holy company. But that tendency for holy company has to be there. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna, he'll divide people into different categories. Some he'll say, Buddhajiv, that they're just born uh, almost with a life sentence to lead a worldly life. Now, not that they can't have some radical change or something, but are very much bound by these tendencies, these samskaras. And there'll be other people that very easily can just cast off this little veil of Maya. So there are all different types of people. Uh, it's not good to judge other people, and not too good to judge ourselves even too much. We have no idea where we're born on the ladder that goes to the roof, how close or how far away. Uh, and of course, Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, they both believe in grace. The touch of a great saint, of a holy person, can change a whole lifetime. It can burn up all sorts of things. Yeah, and of course, spiritual practice. Spiritual practice. We have to, and we'll get to that later. There's this need to have a tremendous desire for leading a higher type of life, for purifying our hearts, for getting rid of all these lower tendencies, and having some higher type of realization. And we have to work very hard for that if we want to be able to feel that divine grace. So this will be the kind of second theme that we'll get to. So he's mentioning this Lala Babu. He had so much wealth. Could he have renounced it all so suddenly without the good tendencies of his previous births? And Rani Bhavani, so much knowledge and devotion in a woman. In his last birth, a man is endowed with sattva. Yeah, this sattva, in general, all of the good qualities that we can imagine. Yeah, sweetness and kindness and love and compassion and intelligence and common sense, all of these very good qualities that we can imagine. These are the things that, if we're born with these things naturally, then we consider it a great blessing. If we recognize that we would like to have these qualities but don't have them, it's also a great blessing. These are both through grace. If we recognize that we don't have them and we do something about it, this is also grace. If we're born with them and we like them, and we like to wallow in the mud, good. That'll be this lifetime. We'll do it. We'll learn our lessons, and it'll be bitter medicine, but we'll learn it eventually that way. So these are the things that we should get out of this theory of samskaras. Is not just to understand why we are the way we are. It's meant to give us some incentive to be able to change. And the sattva, this is the greatest thing. We hear so much about going beyond the three gunas. We shouldn't even think about that in our wildest dreams until we attain to sattva. Yeah, we shouldn't think about this golden chain of goodness and kindness and everything. Yeah, there may be some a little ego there that we have to transcend at the very end, but we have to become like that first. Yeah. So the main thing now is to try to eliminate this tamas. Tamas will really be these very dark. Tamas kills, and according to Thakur's illustration of the robbers, tamas kills us through lethargy, through dark black moods, for depression, very very dark. It's considered tamas. It means darkness, and then rajas will get bound through ambition and restlessness and longing for money and wealth and name and fame and all of these things, and then sattva will soothe us. Sattva will just pour cool water on this burning fire of the heart. So we have to develop that sattva, that sattvic mind can become this shuddha sattva, this pure sattva, where that mind becomes, as Ramakrishna says, one with the pure self. So this is one way to look at spiritual life, to purify these old samskaras, to develop this sattva, this purity of heart. Yes.
Is it fair to say that if somebody has very good samskaras and the conditions are not conducive, does it still progress in spiritual life?
If someone has very good samskaras and the conditions are not conducive, yeah. I mean, if we look at the lives of Prahlada and something like that, yeah, these good samskaras should win out at the end, and everything is conducive if we have the right attitude, even if we're born. But generally, the idea, if we have these good samskaras, we'll be born into a sattvic family. Generally, this idea is there. In Gita, the very good, pure souls will be born in a prosperous family, and with good-hearted, kind people, and those who are really ready for this highest thing, they'll be born in a family of yogis. It may be a very poor family, a simple family and everything, but that'll be considered an even higher type of birth. Yeah, is it possible for people with a very good tendencies to be born in the challenging circumstances? I would think so, of course. Latu Maharaj. Yeah, but look at his samskaras brought him this Ramakrishna. Yeah. So it's an interesting question. Those with good samskaras, will they always be born in favorable circumstances? We assume, yes, but we may not recognize them as favorable. They may look to be very challenging, and because we always say, well, good people, why do good people suffer so much sometimes? Yeah, but maybe this is breaking that last bit of attachment for them, and yeah, we have these stories. The story of Krishna, that he goes to visit two devotees, and one is praying for more money and everything, and he gives it to him. And this other poor woman, she has almost nothing but one cow. Huh? And so what does Sri Krishna do? He makes the cow die. So his companions asked him, "Oh, I don't understand." And he said, "This worldly man, this is what he wanted. He has to fulfill that desire before he can go for anything higher." And this elderly woman, that was the only attachment she had in her life. And now this cow is gone. She has nothing to hold on to but God Himself. So hard for us to judge what are auspicious circumstances. But at least according to Gita, uh, if we have these good samskaras, we should be born in circumstances and family and environment that will allow these to manifest themselves and blossom. Yeah. In his last birth, a man is endowed with sattva. His mind is directed to God. He longs for God. He withdraws his mind from worldly things. Krishna Das Pal came here. This Krishna Das Pal, he was the publisher, editor, I looked it up, of this Hindu Patriot. It was some well-known magazine or periodical, something like that, and very educated person, a little bit political and everything. He was a well-known figure at that time. I don't know anything much more about him than that. Anyhow, Krishna Das Pal came here. I found him full of rajas, but it must be said that he observed the Hindu customs. So he must have been a little bit Western educated and everything also. You know anything about him? Krishna Das Pal? No. He left his shoes outside before entering the room. After a little conversation, I discovered that he had no stuff inside. So we may judge people from on one level, highly educated, highly thought of, very, very much respected, had a good position and everything. That doesn't mean necessarily that he has any spirituality within or any even sensitivity or goodness, or we don't know. Yeah, but it's we can't judge always from external circumstances. The point. I asked him about man's duty. He said, to do good to the world. I said, my dear sir, who are you? What good will you do to the world? Is the world such a small thing that you think you can help it? Now, very often, people jump to the conclusion that Ramakrishna didn't care about anybody else's suffering or anything like that. It's not that. It's that he found that there were, and this was what he found with the Brahmos, especially with Vidyasagar and others. And everything was directed outward, and it was a type of social work that they were doing, and there was a little ego behind it, and that I'll be the one who will lift up and help other people and everything. So otherwise, he used to say, those who have no compassion for others, they're not even human beings. This is a minimal type of thing. But those who busy themselves all of the time with this type of social service work without any depth of feeling behind it. Yeah. Now for Swamiji, especially if that type of work is done as worship, seeing God within, then it's the highest type of worship. So it depends on the attitude. Narayan arrived. Sri Ramakrishna was very happy to see him. He seated Narayan by his side on the small couch. We've been introduced to Narayan many times. He was M's student, and Thakur loved him. Again, that Thakur felt he had such good samskaras, such a pure young man, boy, we can say, probably just a teenager at that time. And all of the tendencies that could have, as from our vantage point, could have made him an ideal monk, sadhu, but parents were deadly against it. They even would beat him when they found that he went to Sri Ramakrishna. They were so much against his going there. And he came anyhow. He didn't mind getting beatings. Thakur loved him very much, and he loved Thakur and M. He was so grateful to M that he would, when M would go by with folded hands, he would stand like that for introducing him to Sri Ramakrishna. So there's Narayan, he called him Naran. He comes up many, many times in the gospel. So Narayan, he seated Narayan by his side on the small couch. He showed him his love by stroking his body and giving him sweets to eat. Then he asked Narayan tenderly, will you have some water? Narayan was a student at M's school. At home, his people beat him for visiting Sri Ramakrishna. The master said to Narayan with an affectionate smile, "You had better get a leather jacket, then the beating won't hurt." Turning to Harish, the master said that he would like to have a smoke. There's a Harish. He was a married person, but had some longing for this monastic life. He lived with Sri Ramakrishna for some time. Thakur eventually said, "You better go back home." He went a little bit mad at some point and everything, but during this period, uh, most of the time he was staying there also in Dakshineshwar. Again, addressing Narayana, Sri Ramakrishna said, "That woman who has established an artificial relationship of mother and son with Haripada came here the other day." Now, we saw reference to this earlier, that this was the case. Anyhow, she belongs to the Ghoshpada sect. I asked her if she had found her man, in quotes. She said yes, and mentioned a man's name. Now, this Ghoshpada and this Kartabhaja, this Ghoshpada was actually the place where this Kartabhaja sect was started, and somehow came to be the name of the sect also. So I don't think they were two different organizations, Ghoshpada and Kartabhaja. This Kartabhaja and Ghoshpada. There are two things here. One is that the same woman had this attitude about Bhattsalya, that she looked upon Krishna as her child, and they would reenact these things as part of their sadhana. So they would find a young man or a boy and feed this young boy and take care of him and practically worship him to engender that feeling of love that Mother Yashoda had for baby Krishna. And sometimes it's not a young boy, it's a teenager or older, and it deteriorates, it degenerates. The other thing is, this, which is worse, this reenactment of this Radha Krishna. And we'll even see that this Chandravali, she had a lustful attitude towards Krishna. This calm Radha, we'll get to this, it'll come up. So we generally have this understanding, Radha and Krishna, that they were young teenagers, something like that, at most. And it was a very sweet type of relationship. But again, degeneration takes place. So he asked, I asked her if she found her man. So this probably means that now forget about this Vatsalya Bhava. And now there's Madhura Bhava, this lover beloved relationship. And they accompany this with a drinking. Can't imagine a worse way of keeping this as some type of pure relationship. They're drinking this karan, this wine, consecrated wine. They're not supposed to be drinking it just to get drunk or anything, but somehow this intoxication of wine will mirror this divine intoxication. We always hear about Sri Ramakrishna in an intoxicated mood, because that elevated consciousness that comes through entering into that state of bhava, we can only compare it to things that we know. The ways that drinking too much or drugs or something, how it can change the mind and everything. So that language is used, or erotic language is used, because we have nothing to compare this ecstatic love of God with other than things like this. Yeah. So this mixture of men and women, and then this taking of this consecrated wine, this was a very dangerous thing. So Sri Ramakrishna, he warned his Haripada very much about this. He was innocent, and everything can start out very innocently. Vatsalya teke, vatsalya tat cholo hoy. It turns into something else. Interesting way he has to say. So he brings this up, perhaps because Narayan, he's a young boy, and all the older women will love these young boys. Those so pure-hearted young boys, they'll want to feed them and just show them their love and affection and everything. It's a natural kind of thing. So maybe he's trying to warn him a little bit also. Yeah. To him, Nilkanta came here the other day. What spiritual fervor he has. He said he would come here another day and sing for us. He was one of the many kirtaniyas, these kirtan singers. There was one Vaishnav Charan, not the Ghoshpara, one Vaishnav Charan, this Nilkanta. And Thakur liked them both very much. This is what they did professionally. They would sing the kirtan, and generally they were really genuine spiritual seekers as well. They didn't have to be, but generally they were. This was what they did. So, Nilkanta came here the other day. What spiritual fervor he has. He said he would come here another day and sing for us. They are dancing over there. Why don't you go and see it? To Ramlal. There's no oil in the room. Looking at the oil jar. The servant hasn't filled it. Now, who was singing? And there was some kirtan going on here. Huh? Anybody remember? Okay. The Radhakanta. So this is the temple just north of the Kali temple, just near Thakur's room. Now, one thing we note here, that Sri Ramakrishna was very attentive to small details when his mind was on that level. When his mind was at a higher level, he didn't know if the world existed or did not exist. He notices that there's no oil in the oil lamp. He's very particular about these things, and would get annoyed if people didn't pay attention to them. This is part of the training that we get in our order, that starts with Ramakrishna, goes to Swamiji and the others, that we have to be very attentive to small little things, not do things in any sloppy manner, to pay attention to details and skillfulness. Kaushalam. This idea that we should do everything with great care and attention to skillfulness, devotion, and love, and do everything as an offering. So Thakur, he taught these things to Holy Mother also. Be very attentive to these small things. Sri Ramakrishna was walking up and down, now in his room, now on the south veranda, occasionally pausing on the semicircular porch west of his room. He would look at the Ganges. After a while, he returned to his room and sat on the small couch. It was past 3 in the afternoon. The devotees took their seats on the floor. The master sat in silence before them, now and then casting a glance at the walls where many pictures were hanging. To Sri Ramakrishna's left was a picture of Saraswati, and behind it a picture of Go and Nitai singing kirtan with their devotees. This is Chaitanya Deva, Nityananda, 2 companions. In front of the master hung pictures of Dhruva, Prahlada, and Mother Kali. On the wall to his right was another picture of the Divine Mother, Raja Rajeshwari. Behind him was a picture of Jesus Christ raising the drowning Peter. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna turned to M and said, "You see, it is good to keep pictures of sannyasis and holy men in one's room. When you get up in the morning, you should see the faces of holy persons rather than the faces of other men. People with rajasic qualities keep English pictures on their walls, pictures of rich men, the king, the queen, the Prince of Wales, and white men and women walking together. That shows their rajasic temperament." Yes, Ramakrishna, he had great faith in this idea of uddipana, that thing, this triggering power of external objects. And always, this was something very evident in his own lifetime. If he would see something that would remind him of something, it would trigger some spiritual mood. This was seen in the life of Radha to a tremendous extent. If there was a dark rain cloud, immediately she would think of Krishna. If she saw the peacock with the feathers raised, she would think of Krishna because he kept a peacock feather on his crown. All different things like that. Chaitanya Deva. As soon as he would see even the ocean when he was in Puri, he would think of the Yamuna with Krishna on the banks of the river. So these were all things we find in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, that he would see something and it would awaken something, trigger something, uddipana, as if you get a little close to the fire and it catches fire, that type of idea. There are many examples. We know that one time when he was in the Maidan, and there was an English boy there leaning against a tree with his body bent into the same way that we see pictures of Krishna. Immediately he went to some ecstatic mood. Or if he goes to the zoo and sees the lion, he will think of Ma Durga. So like that. So he's recommending that we also keep things around which will enkindle some spiritual feelings within us and be reminders of what we're trying to achieve in life. You acquire the nature of the people whose company you keep. And this is equally true. We acquire the nature of the object of our meditation, even more so, even more strongly. Well, I shouldn't say more strongly, but both things are true. That this is when we ask ourselves why we practice meditation. What are we trying to accomplish in meditation? Some people will say, yes, I want to have samadhi. Others will say, I want to open up the heart. I want to have love of God. Others will say, I want to develop these sattvic qualities. Others will say, I want to become like this object of meditation. I want to feel myself being transformed, taking on the qualities. So if we meditate on our Ishta Devata, our chosen ideal, simply with name and form, we repeat the name and we try to visualize the form, then we miss this other element of it, that if we think of the life and the personality and the character and the qualities and everything, then those are the things that will enter into our hearts. So that'll also have the transforming power. But if we keep company with these people, then naturally these things will filter into us unknowingly. But we have to be receptive, and we have to have a little bit of that purity of heart. Otherwise, it'll bounce off, and we won't gain too much. So yeah, this is even we see with kids this idea of peer pressure, that the kids, they hang out with other kids and they start imitating them, mimicking them, acting like them. So if they hang out with nice kids, it's a wonderful thing. If they hang out with these gang kids and mean kids and bullies and everything, they start becoming like that. Now there'll be some who have these good samskaras, and it won't happen with them. They'll immediately think, how can you be like that? And then they'll leave them. But it's a certain age, especially the teenagers, highly susceptible to peer pressure. Yeah. So especially Shuncho, are you listening? Yeah, it's very, very good. That see, we have some young kids. I won't mention his name, but so much company of sadhus and everything. How wonderful it is, and how character gets formed that way. Yeah, a great blessing. Yeah. You acquire the nature of the people whose company you keep. Therefore, even pictures may prove harmful. So if it's a very worldly people or violent things and everything. Again, a man seeks the company that agrees with his own nature. The Paramahamsas keep near them a few young boys, 5 or 6 years old. They allow such boys to be near them, attaining the state of a Paramahamsa. A man loves the company of boys. Yeah, because there's an innocence and a playfulness and non-attachment. Attachment for 1 minute and then they forget it and go to something else. Like the Paramahamsas, the boys are not under the control of the gunas, sattva, rajas, or tamas. Now, do they not lose their temper and scream and holler? Of course, but there's no attachment to these things. The next minute they'll drop it. So, uh, and of course, there's a great difference between some kids and some other kids. By looking at trees, a man awakens in his heart the picture of a hermitage in which a rishi is practicing austerity. So all of these things, the emphasis that's put on environment in spiritual life is extremely important. That to have, when we sit for meditation, to have a shrine room, to have holy pictures there, even light some incense, do things that will awaken the feeling of the sacred. These are very beneficial, helpful things, psychologically helpful and devotionally helpful. A Brahmin from Sinti entered the room and saluted Sri Ramakrishna. He had studied Vedanta in Benares. He was stout and had a smiling face. Master, hello, how are you? You haven't been here in a long time. Pandit, yeah, we never get to know his name. Smiling, worldly duty, sir. You know I have very little leisure. Yet those who, Brahmin Pandits, they'll be poor. There's not these. They're not going to be merchants and business people and uh, lawyers and doctors. This is the price they pay for keeping the sacred tradition alive. They're willing to do that. Was always the glory of the Brahmins. That to keep these traditions of scholarship and spirituality alive, they're willing to submit to not having a lot of money, and in the old days, of course, and to be very restrictive with regard to luxury and enjoyment and food and everything. It'll be the highest restrictions on them, and this is traditionally the glory of the Brahmins. The Pandit sat down, and the master began to talk with him. Master, you spent a long time in Benares. Tell us what you saw there. Tell us something about Dayananda. Now, this Dayananda Saraswati was one of the most influential figures in India. That he was the founder of the Arya Samaj, which even today exerts tremendous influence, mostly in Punjab, but generally in more northern India. And it's based on a very interesting idea that the Vedic tradition underwent a tremendous change at some point, where all of the early Vedic tradition, yajna, which is all what we now they call Havan, which was all based on sacrifice into a fire. And the Vedic deities were all replaced. Indra, Vayu, Varuna, Agni, all of these were replaced by the modern pantheon, we can say. That Shiva, Vishnu, and Durga, all forms of the Divine Mother, and then with the avatars. Yeah. So his idea was that these were later changes, that the real tradition should be kept, that goes back to the Vedic period. So he liked the Brahmo Samaj, but for a completely different reason. Didn't care for these modern Hindu deities and puja as opposed to yajna and that type of worship and everything. So it became very popular. Even today, we have many our devotees that once a month or once a week something that they'll have havan. They'll all go to somebody's house and they'll do these special offerings. Won't care much for these modern day gods and goddesses and things. Yeah. So he went very much against the what became the present day traditions in India, where puja really took over, and yajna became just a kind of a remnant, an old remnant. It remains a little with homa and other things, viraja homa and other things, but otherwise, puja it replaced it. Same thing happened in the Jewish and Christian tradition. Exactly the same thing. The Judaism was a priestly religion at one time, and they had fire and they had offerings in the fire and everything, and then they got replaced by rabbinical Judaism, and those things were kind of left behind. So anyhow, his idea was to go back to what he felt was the real original and genuine, authentic tradition. But
how is Homa different from Havan?
How is
Homa different
Homa and Havan?
from Havan?
I don't really know what they do with Havan nowadays. If they what type of,
They do just
but is it old Vedic mantras?
yeah, they are Vedic ones.
Yeah, it's probably not very. The old tradition was that you had to have a priest, and there could be sacrifice of a goat and other things. So it may not be exactly what was done before, but it'll be kind of a modern replica of the old yajna tradition. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know enough about it.
Householders can do anybody.
Householders can do it.
They don't need a priest.
They don't need it. Yes. So the old yajna, it had to be a purohit. It had to be a priest who did it, and they had to follow all the rules and rituals, everything, even how far the post that the goat is tied to, from the rest of it, and how you arrange the sticks for the fire. Everything had to be done. And there's one of all the yantras that you draw first, everything very, very particular, and the mantras had to be recited perfectly, and then the results would come. So it's a growth, it's outgrowth of that.
It is for fulfilling a desire, Homa.
Yeah, yajna was also to fulfill desires.
No, Swamiji, the Havan
Yeah.
is done routinely. Like in our family, it was like every Tuesday.
Every
It
Tuesday.
was done
Yes.
for no reason. I mean, it was for desire or anything.
No. So then the Havan, it underwent changes, of course. So it becomes more of an equivalent to puja, I would say. It becomes a devotional type of thing, but not to a personal God, right? No real idea of personal God that way. Yeah. No, but the old yajna was always, there was some reason for it. Either some things had to be done on different occasions, nimitta, on different occasions. Some things were done sakama, that they were done for offspring, for good crop, for rainfall, and swarga, and to go to heaven. But Havan today will be more of a devotional, but not with the idea of real personal God of
Purification kind of.
a purification type of thing. Yeah, no, it's a nice tradition, a good tradition, of course. So tell us what you saw there. Tell us something about Dayananda Pandit. Yes, I met him. You also met him, didn't you? Yeah, Thakur, he met many of these very famous people. Yeah, Master. Yes, I visited him. He was living then in a garden house on the other side of the Ganges. Keshav was expected there that day. He longed for Keshav. This means Dayananda. He longed for Keshav as the chatak bird longs for rain. See, Keshav had a reputation, and he had been to England. He met the Queen. He was Western educated. Even the British admired him to a certain extent. So he had some special status. He wasn't nearly the scholar. He wasn't a great scholar. He didn't emphasize it that much. This Dayananda, he was a great scholar, but still, and he had a personality. This Keshav, but the type of personality that would draw people. These really Narendra and Rakal, all of the future monks, they were so drawn to the Keshav M also that he had some magnetic personality, some real charisma, and not a false charisma. He was a good person, and people recognized that. So he longed for Keshav as the chatak bird longs for rain. He was a great scholar and made fun of the Bengali language. He admitted the existence of the deities but Keshav did not. So these will be the Vedic deities. Yeah, so this was the argument that he had. One of the things with Keshav. Keshav didn't care for any of these, whether it's Radha Krishna and Rama Sita and everything, or whether it's Shiva and Durga and sort of all that. Yeah, they didn't emphasize those things at all. It was more this impersonal absolute, God is Father, Pita, that type of idea. Very much Judeo-Christian Islamic idea, concept of God, very much so. He admitted the existence of the deities, but Keshav did not. Dayananda used to say, God has created so many things. Couldn't he have created the deities? Dayananda believed the ultimate reality to be without form. So this they agreed, Keshav and Dayananda, but in completely different ways. Yeah, this formless reality. So they both went against the current of modern Hinduism, which is worship generally of God with some type of personality or form, or some Puranic conception of God, or one of the avatars, something like that.
Only the modern day deities
Yes,
in Hindu,
yes.
were they influenced by the Greek?
Were they influenced by the Greek? I would say that if we look at the Vedic deities, that there's a tremendous parallel. I don't know if it's just a natural thing, or which one influenced the other. If we believe this idea that the Aryans gave birth to both the Greeks and the Indo-Aryans, then there may be a common basis in everything. But they both had like a king of all the gods, Zeus and Indra. They had, and Greek and Roman, they're almost the same. So they'll have a god of the sea, Poseidon. Then so there's a tremendous parallel. Probably it's because there was some Indo-Aryan culture. This is the theory. This is and it's the scholars will try to give evidence for this in terms of language, the commonality between Greek and Sanskrit. That we can see how they both had a single source. That it developed a little bit this way with Greek, a little bit this way with Sanskrit, and everything. So culturally, there must have been common things also. So it could be that with the Greek pantheon and the Vedic pantheon, that there were definitely parallels. Some terms even, yes. If you think of Dieu, Pitre, yeah, Jupiter. Huh? In Jupiter, now these planets were also gods. The same word. Yeah, the father of the heavens. Yeah, Jupiter will be, I guess, like Zeus. But anyhow, so there's parallel and carryover. How exactly? So scholarly speculation. So Dayananda believed the ultimate reality to be without form. Captain, we've met Captain before. He was very Orthodox Hindu, was repeating the name of Rama. Dayananda said to him sarcastically, "Better repeat Sandesh." Pandit. In Benares, the Pandits had great discussions with Dayananda. Finally, he was left alone with all the others against him. They made it so hot for him that he thought the only way to save himself was by running away. All the Pandits shouted with one voice, "Whatever Dayananda has said is to be despised. Dayanandena yaduktam tadheyam." I saw Colonel Alcott too. Colonel Alcott and Madame Blavatsky. They were the founders of the Theosophical Society, which was very influential in India. Yeah, and in the U.S. also when Swamiji came. They tried both to undermine Swamiji's work and also to claim him. Yeah, in India. It's a funny kind of combination and everything. Swamiji told him, no, these people were not so friendly to me. Don't let them co-opt me in India. I saw Colonel Alkatu. The Theosophists believe in the existence of Mahatmas. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Pandit saying, not Ramakrishna. Yeah, he probably never met him. Yeah. So, okay, so, yeah, this is a Pandit saying, I saw Colonel Alkatu. The Theosophists believe in the existence of Mahatmas. They also speak of the lunar, solar, stellar, and other planes. A Theosophist can go in his astral body to all these planes. Oh, Alcott said many such things. Well, sir, what do you think of Theosophy? And now Sri Ramakrishna knew very little of these, unless somebody came who was a Theosophist, or he went to see someone and he asked them about it, he would have no way of knowing these things. He knew traditional things because of all the sadhus that came, and all of the places where he went, and pundits that he heard and everything. He didn't read all of these things. He read no books. By the time he left, he gave up his school as a young boy. He could barely read and write. So he would have no way of knowing except just stray things that he heard people say about Theosophy. So Pandit is asking, well, sir, what do you think of Theosophy, Master? The one essential thing is bhakti, loving devotion to God. Do the Theosophists seek bhakti? They are good if they do. If Theosophy makes the realization of God the goal of life, then it is good. Very simple. He's not going to worry too much what peculiar ideas they may have or anything. If this is the ultimate goal, then it's good. One cannot seek God if one constantly busies oneself with the Mahatmas and the lunar, solar, and stellar planes. A man should practice sadhana and pray to God with a longing heart for love of his lotus feet. He should direct his mind to God alone, withdrawing it from the various objects of the world. The Master saying, how are you trying, O my mind, to know the nature of God? Now, this is one of the great themes that we find in almost all of the songs to the Divine Mother, and in general, and in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. This idea that philosophy will take us just so far, and that it's impossible to with this human mind and within the vastness of this universe to answer any of these ultimate questions. So common theme in Ram Prasad songs and other songs. So how are you trying, O my mind, to know the nature of God? You are groping like a madman locked in a dark room. He is grasped through ecstatic love. How can you fathom him without it? And for that love, the mighty yogis practice yoga from age to age. When love awakes, the Lord, like a magnet, draws to him the soul. Continuing, the Master said, you may speak of the scriptures, of philosophy, of Vedanta, but you will not find God in any of these. Now, this is, of course, leading up to a song, that God is not to be found in dogmas and doctrines. Swamiji, one of his great statements also, that God is to be found deep within the heart through direct realization, either through love or through just going beneath the surface level of the mind to within that heart center, and not through this intellectual type of mind. So you may speak of the scriptures, of philosophy, of Vedanta, but you will not find God in any of these. You will never succeed in realizing God unless your soul becomes restless for him. Then he sings, only through affirmation, never negation, can you know him, neither through Veda, nor through Tantra, nor the six darshanas. Swamiji made a great statement once. He said the Vedas are the only scripture of the world that will say that you can't get the truth through the Vedas. You have to go beyond I'll do these things. Anyhow, only through affirmation, never negation, can you know him, neither through Veda, nor through Tantra, nor the six darshanas, six systems of philosophy. It is in love's elixir only that he delights, O mind. He dwells in the body's inmost depths in everlasting joy. One must, then Thakur says, one must be very earnest about God. Listen to another song. See, this is also a theme in the Vaishnava tradition, not just the Shakti tradition. Can everyone have the vision of Radha? Can everyone taste her love? This, the rarest treasure of all, no earthly wealth can buy. Without devotion and sadhana, none can ever obtain it. The raindrop falling upon the deep, when Swati shines on high, is formed within the oyster shell into a priceless pearl. Can such a pearl be formed from the rain that falls at other times? Mothers with their babes in arms may beckon to the moon to leave the sky and come to them, but only the babes are fooled. Does the moon ever leave the sky and dwell upon the earth? One must practice intense spiritual discipline. Can one obtain the vision of God all of a sudden without any preparations? We'll stop here. I'll actually start at this again because this raises so many beautiful topics here. So we're ending at the top of page 608. And I will be away next Friday, so we won't have class. The following Friday, I think I'm back for that. Okay. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatudha Vai Vishavataram Parameshamedhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namaha. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, thank you, everyone. See you next time.